he's found guilty, I would like to know that he's behind bars like for a long time. I think it would make a lot of us young women feel safe at home knowing that he's not out and about, like can go into our homes.
I would like something big for it to happen to him. I think it will set an example. It'll definitely put a stamp on what we expect here in this community.
There's something mentally wrong with him, and my personal feeling would be that he would have become a serial killer if he could have, because his crimes kept getting progressively worse.
It was January 20th, 2008, a cold, quiet winter morning in Reno, Nevada. At 4 a.m., a faint recording from a nearby house camera captured the blurry silhouette of a man moving through the shadows near the University of Nevada, Reno. No one could have known that within minutes, a young woman's life would be stolen and a city would be shaken to its core. Her name was Brianna Denison. Before the tragedy that would make national headlines, Brianna lived the life of a typical 19-year-old college student. Born and raised in Reno, she had grown up in a loving family, known for her kindness, bright smile, and a calm maturity beyond her age. Friends described her as warm, grounded, and always there for others. At the time of the incident, she was attending Santa Barbara City College, but had returned home to Reno during winter break to visit her family and reconnect with friends. Her days leading up to the crime were peaceful and ordinary, filled with gatherings, conversations, and plans for the year ahead. On the evening of January 19, 2008, Brianna decided to spend time with close friends near the UNR campus. They met at a local party, laughed, talked, and enjoyed the kind of carefree night that should have ended safely. Around 4 a.m., after her friend picked her up, Brianna chose to stay the night at a residence on Mackay Court, just across from the university. The house was familiar and filled with people she trusted. Exhausted from the long night, she lay down to sleep on the couch in the living room. The sliding glass door behind her, a detail no one thought twice about, was left unlocked. The neighborhood had always felt safe. No one inside the home could have predicted that a predator was already lurking nearby. In the months before Brianna's disappearance, multiple young women near the UNR campus had reported being attacked or assaulted during the night. Women living in the area often felt watched, as if someone was studying their routines. Police were aware of a series of sexual assaults tied to an unidentified man, but the trail had gone cold. And on that early January morning, he struck again. Sometime before dawn, an unknown man entered the house through the unlocked door. Quiet, calculated, and disturbingly confident, he approached the sleeping girl on the couch. What happened next was sudden and violent. Brianna was forcibly taken from the home without making a sound loud enough to wake anyone inside. By the time morning came, the entire house remained unaware that she had been abducted. When her friend walked into the living room hours later, the couch was empty. At first, they assumed she had stepped out. But the more they looked, the clearer it became that something was wrong. Brianna's purse was still there. Her phone. Her clothes. Everything she owned remained untouched except her blanket, which was found in the yard, partially stuck under a bush. Panic set in immediately. Her family was notified. Police were called. What began as confusion quickly erupted into fear. Brianna was not the type to wander off, and she never left without contacting someone. A missing persons report was filed that same morning, triggering a massive search operation around Reno. Detectives cordoned off the house on Mackay Court as a potential crime scene. Forensic teams began carefully examining the living room and the sliding door. They collected fibers, fingerprints, and any trace of DNA that could offer answers. Outside, dogs searched the yard and surrounding streets. Volunteers handed out flyers. Local news stations broadcast her photo citywide. And yet, there was no clue of where she had been taken. Within 24 hours, investigators discovered something crucial. A small amount of blood on the pillow where Brianna had slept. It was not hers. DNA analysis later revealed it belonged to an adult male, and to their shock, It matched DNA recovered from 2 previous sexual assault victims near the university. All 3 cases were now tied to the same unidentified offender. This revelation changed everything. Meanwhile, the search for Brianna intensified. Police combed through surveillance footage from nearby buildings, interviewed party attendees, questioned neighbors, and followed every tip. Helicopters scanned open fields. Officers searched abandoned buildings, riverbanks, and remote areas outside Reno. The city held its breath. Days turned into weeks. Family members pleaded publicly for her safe return. Candlelight vigils were held. Hundreds of volunteers joined the effort. But despite the community's determination, Brianna remained missing. Then, on February 15, 2008, nearly a month after she disappeared, a chilling discovery was made. A man walking near a desolate lot in southeast Reno noticed something on the ground beneath a stack of debris. It was the body of a young woman. Detectives arrived quickly, and with heavy hearts they confirmed the worst. The remains belonged to Brianna Denison. She had been sexually assaulted and murdered. Forensic examination showed signs of strangulation. The brutality of the crime stunned even seasoned investigators. The autopsy provided key evidence. DNA collected from her body matched the same male profile tied to the earlier assaults. The killer had finally left enough evidence for police to follow, but they still had no name, no suspect, and no clear motive. Only a DNA profile. As Brianna's loved ones grieved, the timeline of her final hours was pieced together carefully. Where she had been, who she had seen, how the offender had entered the home. Every detail became a potential clue, and investigators knew one thing for certain. The man who murdered Brianna was still out there, and he had attacked before. This marked the beginning of one of Nevada's most intense investigations, one that would eventually uncover the identity of a dangerous predator hiding in plain sight. The discovery of Brianna Denison's body transformed the case from a missing person search into a full homicide investigation. Detectives intensified their efforts, determined to uncover the man behind the DNA profile that had now been connected to 3 violent assaults and 1 murder. The pressure was immense, not only from the public, who demanded justice, but also from the families of previous victims who hoped the nightmare would finally end. Investigators began by reconstructing Brianna's final movements. Every individual who had interacted with her during the hours leading up to her abduction was interviewed. Friends recounted the events of the party, her decision to stay overnight, and the seemingly ordinary nature of the evening. Detectives examined the sliding door, the yard, and footprints left in the soil, but rain and time had erased most of the physical traces. Still, the case now hinged on the most important lead they had: the DNA. The male profile, though unidentified, was complete and strong. Detectives cross-referenced it with every offender in Nevada's DNA database. They searched national records, looked into recently discharged military personnel, and even checked individuals with minor assault histories. But no match appeared. That meant the offender had never been arrested for a felony or had never had his DNA entered into the system. With few traditional leads available, investigators turned to the past sexual assault cases linked by DNA. They re-interviewed the victims, studied the attack patterns, and searched for consistencies in the offender's behavior. Each assault happened near the university. Each occurred late at night or early in the morning. The victims all described a man who moved with confidence and strength. The assaults were planned, deliberate, and escalating. This was not opportunistic violence. This was a predator developing a pattern. Meanwhile, police began receiving tips from the public. One tip would eventually change everything. A woman reported that her boyfriend, James Michael Biela, had recently expressed fear that police were looking for him. She also stated that he had given her a pair of women's underwear, an unsettling detail that immediately caught the attention of detectives. The woman explained that James had asked her to hold on to them, something she found strange but never connected to a crime. When detectives tested the underwear, the results were undeniable. The DNA belonged to the same man who murdered Brianna. With this breakthrough, investigators quickly built a profile on Biela. He was a 27-year-old construction worker, a former Marine, and a father. He lived in Reno and was familiar with the university area. He also had a documented history of domestic violence against his girlfriend, including controlling and aggressive behavior. The pieces were coming together. Detectives obtained a warrant to collect Biela's DNA. Officers approached him at work, and though he tried to remain calm, his demeanor showed clear signs of stress. When his DNA sample was processed, the results aligned perfectly with the profile from Brianna's case and the earlier assaults. The match was absolute. On November 25, 2008, 10 months after Brianna's disappearance, police arrested James Michael Biela for kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder. During interrogation, Biela denied all involvement. He insisted he had nothing to do with Brianna, nothing to do with the prior attacks, and nothing to hide. Detectives challenged his claims with the DNA evidence, but he remained emotionless, often responding with vague statements or contradictions. When confronted about the underwear kept by his girlfriend, he became silent. His refusal to confess, however, had no impact on the mounting evidence. Prosecutors moved quickly to build a complete case file. They compiled DNA reports, witness statements, timelines, forensic maps, phone records, and behavioral analyses. Experts testified that the probability of the DNA match being coincidental was astronomically low. The link to the earlier victims showed a clear pattern of escalating violence, culminating in murder. As the trial approached, the community prepared for one of the most emotional court proceedings in Reno's history. Brianna's family, along with survivors of the previous assaults, attended every hearing. Their presence filled the courtroom with a mix of sorrow, resolve, and strength. The trial began in May 2010. Prosecutors laid out a methodical and devastating narrative. A man who stalked the university area. A man whose assaults became more aggressive. A man who entered a home while others slept. A man whose DNA marked every crime scene. A man who murdered a defenseless 19-year-old girl. The defense argued that the DNA evidence was contaminated and that circumstantial details could not prove intent. But with each witness, their arguments weakened. The scientific evidence was overwhelming. The victims' testimonies were powerful. And the timeline of Biela's movements on the night of the crime aligned with the abduction window. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for less than a day. The verdict: guilty on all counts. On August 10, 2010, the judge delivered the sentence. For the kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder of Brianna Denison, along with his previous assaults, James Michael Biela received the death penalty and 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Biela was transferred to Ely State Prison, where he remains on death row. For Brianna's family, the verdict brought justice but not healing. Their loss was immeasurable, and their grief remained heavy. Yet they chose to honor her memory by turning tragedy into purpose. They created the Brianna Denison Foundation, advocating for improved safety on college campuses and pushing for faster processing of DNA evidence. Their efforts contributed to laws that reduced backlogs in forensic testing, ensuring future victims would not be overlooked. The case left a lasting impact on Nevada. It exposed vulnerabilities in campus safety, highlighted the danger of unprocessed forensic evidence, and reminded communities of the predators who sometimes hide in plain sight. But above all, it underscored the fragility of life and the profound pain of a family who lost a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Brianna Denison's story is not just a true crime case. It is a reminder of the importance of vigilance, community awareness, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Her memory continues to inspire change, ensuring that even in tragedy, her legacy brings protection to others.